Hello and welcome to the Bravas Luxury Living Podcast. In the Luxury Living Podcast, we explore ideas and themes that help you live in your home in a more convenient, easier way and help you automate it. If this is the first time you've been at the Luxury Living Podcast, please like and share it. And if you know someone else who value the content, please go and tell them, send it to them, text them, fax them, tweet them, whatever it is, so we can build the best community around this technology and the technologies that help you at home. With me on this podcast is Keith Brown. Hey, Keith, how are you today?
I'm good, Nigel. How are you?
Good. I'm particularly interested in today because I think we're going to touch a theme. And as we're recording this, gas is probably at an all-time high, which probably means all fuel bills are going up. So maybe we found the perfect time to have this conversation.
Yeah, I think people are probably more concerned right now about their expenses as far as um, powering their cars, powering their homes. So I think it is probably a really good time to talk about this.
Okay, and to do this, we actually have two guests. So I'm very excited from our friends at Savant. I have Blair Piersall, the Vice President of Sales. Hello, Blair.
Hey Nigel, how's it going?
It's going great. And Ian Roberts, the Vice President of Channel Marketing and Education. Hey, Ian.
Hey, Nigel. Hey, Keith. Pleasure to be here.
Well, listen, first of all, thank you for the time. I think this is going to be a fascinating conversation. And I think if there are a couple of huge trends in our industry, one of them is lighting. And I know you guys have been all over lighting, but I think the other one that will become an even bigger trend is power. And we're really going to focus on power today. But before we get into that, I always like to give our guests a chance to tell everybody a bit about them, how they got to where they are, and a bit about their background. So why don't we start? Blair, how did you get to be the VP of Sales there at Savant?
So I love this question. I started in the industry in car audio. I think like a lot of folks in custom install and the CI channel did, and eventually went to go work at a manufacturer's rep firm that ended up being one of the first Savant reps in the country, bringing that technology to the integrators. And from there, I had the opportunity to take a direct position with Savant about 9 years ago, and did that, and then I ended up here, like right here, which is pretty cool.
That's great. Ian, what about you? What was your journey to right there?
So, fresh out of school, I joined up with a Savant integrator, and really grew my skill set inside of smart home and home automation. As a family, we had an opportunity to move down to New York, and was able to press the reset button of sorts, and was able to come on board with Savant directly, and grew into more of an educational and marketing role with the team.
Yeah, and I think we should say, Ian, you're clearly not in your living room either. That's a very good virtual image. So exactly where are you?
Yeah, this might be the best virtual technology on the planet. So I'm in the center of our New York City Experience Center. So Savant has an all-encompassing space that allows clients to experience smart home. And in particular, I'm in a space called the Savant Power and Light Lab. And this is where we get to demonstrate some of these emerging technologies, and really leans into the topic of today of smart energy. So excited to be here in this space and sharing it with you.
Okay, and I can tell I've been to that experience center, and there's you guys have some great experience centers. My favorite is still the Vegas house, but that's still a really great experience center in New York, and I'm glad it's back open and you guys are in that because it's a treasure to see. Okay, so I want to go up to about 50,000 feet before we get into products and stuff. We're going to talk about smart energy and power and stuff, but I wondered how we should frame this conversation. Where should we start it, Blair? What do you think are the big trends that you're hearing from clients or you're seeing in the market that says this is a place we should absolutely go focus on?
Well, I think for me, the story actually rewinds many, many years. I think that this idea of an energy independence as an emerging trend or category for people is actually somewhat false. I think people have been interested in the concept of energy independence for quite some time. Any customer who's, I always like to say, put a generator to power their home during a power outage, has invested in solar panels over the last handful of years. I would even say anybody who's casually looked at their electric bill to see how much energy they're consuming on a monthly basis is probably interested in the concept of energy independence. what is interesting to me is the interest is there. I don't feel that the technology has always been there to allow the consumer or the homeowner to really take control of this situation of energy consumption, of off grid and power outages or rolling blackouts or other things like that, and put their technology and their energy independent lifestyle to use for them. And so to me, that's really the motivators for Savant as we look at this category.
So Ian, you're the marketing guy here. So let's talk about the market. Is it at least in the US where we're focused, is it in one particular state? Is it all over? What are you hearing from the market?
So I think it's easy to put your finger on some key regions that may be affected by power outages and unstable power, and effectively we're stressing out the available energy that's available from the typical utility. And so I think consumers are looking for alternative ways to power their home. At the same time, I think we're living in a particularly unique time where we've transitioned as workers, as employees, to be working from home, even in a hybrid model where we're going into the office part-time, or maybe we're working fully from home and in a remote fashion. And now those critical locations in our lives that support the businesses that we work for, that's become the place we live. So this work from home requirement has really changed what we demand from our households, the fact that we need to be operational. And so I think this is the time for people to look at those spaces and elevate them to more of a critical level of how they think about supporting the home.
So that's the very high level view. And as we start to dig down a little bit, what are the specific drivers you're seeing of the different pieces of Savant Power? And maybe you could just kind of give a little bit of detail and kind of, it's a multifaceted, range that you're offering, kind of break down into detail how each piece kind of solves some of those problems we're seeing.
Sure. Yeah. So we capture the whole spectrum of solutions as what we call an in-charge power system. And really that could be any combination of any of the things we've discussed so far. So potentially a client has a generator attached to their home, or maybe they've installed some solar or are looking into that. On the more enhanced side, maybe they're putting some local battery storage in their home so that they're able to power the home even without the grid, and be able to save some of that solar generated power over time. Now, making smart use of that energy is really what Savant Power does in this space. And so the core of our solution is really making every electrical panel smart. And so whether that's a critical load panel for a generator, or potentially just how we're able to distribute that solar energy efficiently and effectively throughout the house, it all comes by way of a technology that we've developed that goes right inside a standard breaker panel. And so this is a control module that not only monitors all of the energy, allows us to turn on and off those different elements of the home and really focus your energy to where it's needed most, especially in those backup power scenarios.
So let's pause there, because otherwise we're going to go too fast. Hold that up again. So what is that goes where my breaker box is? What is the difference again between what you're holding up and what I have down the corridor in the room that I have my breaker box? What's the big difference there?
Sure. So, I'm going to assume that you have a standard breaker panel that has circuit breakers that are providing and distributing power to each of the circuits in your home. Maybe that's outlets or it's lighting, could be subsystems like a hot water heater, maybe your electric vehicle charger. And what we're able to do are make all of those circuits smart. And so we introduce this in-charge module into that same panel so that we can turn on and off those different circuits. And so as we think of how we want to distribute power, and maybe we want to do it more efficiently, maybe we don't want to power the whole house and we're trying to cost reduce, what load the home represents and how much energy it's consuming. Or if we rewind back to that concept of a generator, typically those solutions might go in with a fixed critical load panel that has only ever been designed to power a portion of the home. What we're able to do with this solution with an in-charge power system is access more of the home. And we can just do it in smart combinations where, sometimes in the summer, we might want to power certain elements like our pool pump and maybe our air conditioning. In the winter, maybe it's a snow melt system or potentially the heat in the home. So we're able to really support more of that lifestyle within the home and access and preserve that comfort for the client.
So Blair, I've seen them. They look great. I'm not going to say they're expensive because price is all relative. But when you see a client, when you go visit a client, and you say, what Ian just said, I'm sure they flinch. What's the price benefit of that type of equipment? Just that one piece in the house. Is there a way to tell that story?
Yeah, I think the way to tell that story from our perspective is really talking about the fact that In Charge as a solution meets the client where they are, wherever they are in this energy management story. And so you can lean in with an In Charge power panel, just leveraging those modules that Ian showed us, and make your home ready for any energy scenario. And you can add on to this over time, or you can lean in with the entire solution. So by virtue of what Ian was discussing, let's just make your panels smart. There's actual benefit to that for a very low upfront cost for somebody. And that gives them the flexibility to say, I'd like to add a generator down the road. I'd like to have solar and battery storage. This idea of battery ready, generator ready, smart electrical panel, I think is a very approachable way to tackle this.
So I want to kind of capture that idea a little bit more. Ian, you mentioned when somebody has a generator, typically in a traditional install, they have to determine ahead of time what breaker loads they would want covered by that generator. And they have to make that decision before they've really lived in that home with that system. And you're saying that if they went with the In Charge system, they could essentially determine on the fly what they would want attached to the generator.
Right. So, some of those decisions that get made early, Keith, we're looking at maybe only powering a portion of the home, and that's maybe driven by the generator itself. It's only able to output so much power. And there's that balance between, I could buy a larger generator to get more power for my home, but obviously that's going to be larger. It's going to have a greater noise level. And in some communities that there's restrictions and limitations there. So we're able to apply an In Charge power system and do a few things. So we can, first of all, expand the reach of that generator, but this also might work in the reverse direction where you're able to scale down your generator as well and still achieve that energy resilience that you're after, but with a much smaller form factor.
But you don't have to have a generator. I mean, there is real benefit to these smart breakers, aren't there, Blair, without having to have any of the other technologies we're going to talk about?
Absolutely. I would actually use my house as an example of that. So I have grid-tied solar installed on the roof of my home. It covers about 80% of my electrical consumption. And when you get your solar system set up, you usually have an app that tells you how much solar energy you're producing. But the typical end user has no idea what they're consuming relative to that solar production and what the major energy consumers are inside of the home. And so by swapping out to or changing to an In Charge power panel, even a customer who has grid-tied solar with no aspirations of a generator or battery storage can't take a little bit more control over their energy scenarios. They could say, look, I'm only going to allow myself to charge my car during the day when solar production is very, very high, and I'm not taking that power off of the grid. They can make some smarter decisions as it relates to HVAC or other types of things like that. So I think just in a raw energy monitoring scenario, this is a very beneficial solution for folks.
So Ian, I've got my smart breakers in, and you talked a bit about generators, and Blair's talked a bit about solar. Is there an obvious answer beyond the power that comes in through my utility company, which to start with first? Do you have a view on how would I know which I should be focused on?
Well, I think some of that is driven from your opportunity to install solar or install a generator. I think as you take that next step, the next product in the solution that makes sense is having some local storage to go along with it. So as Blair mentioned, you can build this up over time. As long as you've got that good framework in place, then you can continue to build on this. By introducing that storage to the solution as well, now we get to save that solar energy that we've generated, possibly for another time frame in the day where utility rates might be higher. So in some regions, we have surge pricing or time of use pricing that defines that grid power is just more expensive. And instead, we can use that energy that we've saved and go through this cycle day over day of really a more economical approach to how we prioritize our available energy that is connected to the home.
That makes a lot of sense. So I live in North Texas where we've had pretty well publicized power grid issues. So a generator would make sense for me, someone who just has no idea if I'm going to have power from day to day. The solar solution probably makes sense for somebody either trying to decrease their dependence on the grid. Explain a little bit more how someone would use the energy storage, because I think that's a really neat idea, but it's not something we talk about here in the US very much. It's a new idea, and I think you guys have a pretty good grasp on how somebody could use that to better their home and their life.
Yeah, and I think we need to look at a slightly different mindset as we think about attaching some of these energy solutions to the home. This is more of an infrastructural solution. Really, what we're doing is giving the homeowner the ability to maintain that operation of the home and that lifestyle and comfort that they're akin to. So it's not always about the economics. Sometimes it's just about having your space the way that you want it. So as I mentioned, if you attach that local storage, now you have options available to you to how the home can be powered. So as we rewind, look at historical events, sometimes some of these pipelines have been interrupted as far as even providing energy and fuel to some of those basic generator-based systems. And so this is a great alternative to just really secure your energy resilience across all of those different aspects.
If I can add to that thought, I think battery storage and local energy storage, as Ian said, flexibility is the key. A client who's investing in a generator, it's not cost effective to use that generator when there's time of use pricing in effect, or maybe the client wants to reduce their dependency on the grid. Battery storage introduces complete flexibility into the equation. It can be used as a backup solution. If there should be some grid instability, can be used to reduce the impact of time of use pricing, or it can be used for somebody who has more environmental aspirations and wants to remain off the grid as much as possible. And so when we start to introduce that concept to clients, sometimes we're going through a discovery of their motivations as we're having that discussion and learning where they want to be and what it is that they're exactly looking for.
So if I had solar energy storage and grid power available to me, I'm probably not going to do it like I do mini blinds where I open them when I want to let the sun in and close them when I want shade. I'm assuming that InCharge allows you to automate some of that. Can you explain how that would work?
Sure. So day over day, this smart energy solution is really acting on your behalf to just make sure it maintains the power to the home. So as we think about a traditional day in the life, it might be capturing that solar energy throughout the day, applying it directly to the load of the home so that you're offsetting any power that you're pulling from the grid itself. As we start to see that middle of the day time frame where we're producing so much solar that not only are we able to support the home, we're actually able to store some for later. We get into an evening mode then where we're able to use that stored energy in place of that expensive power from the grid, all the way to a point where it might be the wee hours of the morning. And that might be the time where you want to charge your electric vehicle for the next day. And so this turns into a 24-hour cycle of the system just prioritizing the energy for you. But beyond that, we also look to these solutions to provide us that essential backup for the home should we lose power. So that being the case, if we do get into a power outage scenario, the system automatically responds and powers your most essential elements in the home. And I think what's important to note, not only does the system do that on your behalf, but you have full control to redirect and focus your energy anywhere else that you need. So your lifestyle doesn't get interrupted. You still get to carry on what you're doing in the home as that time moves forward.
So Ian, does that include net metering as well? Is this something where it could help me determine when and if power can be sold back?
Yeah, so if you're in a region where, that's being offered by your utility, what Blair was mentioning, being able to monitor how you're using energy, select or hone in on your top consumers and really be able to take better advantage of those programs. Now you can reduce the load of the home, maybe sell more of your energy back to the grid so that you can maximize those returns.
Okay, so that sounds great, and it sounds very complicated. So I don't know energy from a hole in the ground. So Blair, in my world, how easy is this to practically do, or is this something that a homeowner really has to be a specialist in?
I don't think a homeowner has to be a specialist to understand the motivations and the desire to want to do something like this. I think this is where firms like Savant, firms like Bravas can help sort of, fill in the gaps and help with understanding. What may end up happening is through the process, the homeowner might decide to become a little bit of an energy nerd or an energy specialist. And I can say just the experience of putting solar on my home and a naturally inquisitive nature made me want to learn a hell of a lot more about what is actually happening here and what to Keith's point, net metering means and all of those other things like that. But I think to Ian's point, somebody who just understands comfort and security and longevity of their investment in their home, this is a pretty low barrier to entry for wanting to do something like this.
And we sell a bunch of Savant systems, and we haven't really talked about how the client directly interacts with Savant Power. Can you explain how somebody that had a Savant system, like what they would see if they added Savant Power to it?
Sure. So in their hand, they would have the Savant Pro app, which basically is their gateway to every smart technology in the home, in the palm of their hand. So as they're coordinating what entertainment they want to enjoy, or maybe the dynamic lighting in their home, smart energy ends up being just another destination in the app for them. So there is the ability to dig in and really build that energy awareness, understand what's happening in the home power-wise. They can engage with the home and make smarter decisions on that behalf, and ultimately adjust any element, any circuit, any load within the home. But I think what makes this, just a great overall solution is the fact that if paired, with the Savant home, all of these things can be coordinated together. We have a key feature of the platform that is what we call a scene that just helps all of these things coordinate automatically in the background or as you wish over time. So with one button, you can put that home into vacation mode and reduce the load of the home, set your thermostats back, turn off all the lights. It's really an all-encompassing experience.
And Blair, if we came to one of your show homes, particularly I'm conscious of this in the Vegas one, we could see this really demonstrated for real, can't we?
Yeah, absolutely. So our experience center in Las Vegas has the largest residential solar array in Nevada. And with that, a battery storage and energy management solution that's about to go online that is meant to cover the entire 15,000 square foot residence. So it's a pretty awesome display of what's available.
And it's interesting because when you're in a room, you can press a button and actually see what the energy is being used almost in that room.
You can see that. You can see, I'm a bit of a data nerd, so you can actually dive in and see who the major consumers are this week, this month, this year, really filter that out. You can also get a view of exactly what the power flow looks like. So if you have solar and grid and the home is consuming a certain amount of energy, You have the ability to see how much solar is playing the part, how much the grid is playing the part. To Ian's point, how much power you might potentially be putting back on the grid. And it's a pretty awesome visual just to see this entire solution at work. I think one of the also cool benefits to this, Nigel, that you sort of touched upon is Savant has always been a choose your own adventure kind of experience of technology. The Pro app can do a lot for the power user, but mere mortals can also use it and enjoy it. And the energy experience is designed that way as well. This could almost be a set it and forget it solution, or for someone, I gather like the four of us, could dive in and do more with it if they wanted to, and everyone will be fulfilled and have a good experience, which is pretty cool.
To Nigel's early point, where with gas prices where they are, some of this stuff takes on a whole new meaning. I think it's interesting that you could add the in-charge system, and if you have the Savant app, you may live a certain way with your home, but if your grid situation changes, cost of power changes, you could easily just go in there, make small tweaks on an easy to use app, and then in the same app, see the results of what you've done. Just the same way I don't care at all about what route I take to pick my kids up from school until diesel's $5 a gallon. And all of a sudden I'm rethinking how I handle things in the morning. So I do like that flexibility and the fact that it is so easy to use something so complicated, as Nigel pointed out.
And Keith, you can dig into the details and look for those insights yourself, but we also deliver those to the homeowner through the app as well. So being able to understand, how am I doing day over day or week over week? Am I achieving these goals that I've set for myself? But also just creating that new level of connectedness to the home. So understanding that even while I'm at work, or maybe I'm away on vacation, getting a notification to my phone that tells me the power's gone out, and how has the system adjusted to accommodate for that, and vice versa when the grid power restores, knowing that that's happened as well. So just creating all of those tethers to keep the homeowner connected and informed is important.
Blair, we have a lot of conversations about the eco and the green and the sustainable thing that we do, because we do luxury homes and we do expensive technology. And it's all great value and it's all fabulous and it's well made, but it's definitely a cost. What's interesting to me, and I don't know whether you've experienced this talking to customers, that this idea that I could create a little grid for my home isn't necessarily just about, will it cost me less money? It's also about, there's a value, an ecological value. There's a sensitivity here to the market and where money is being spent too, isn't there?
There is. I mean, with certain folks that we've engaged with, their footprint is a major concern, and this has the ability to offer somebody the comfort that they're looking for while reducing their footprint. And I think that's pretty cool. It allows somebody to have that a luxury-oriented lifestyle. Usually the idea of being green and ecological and luxury do not go hand in hand. It's just not, they don't play well together. This does allow that to play a little bit closer. And I think our Vegas Experience Center is a great example of that. That house is a statement of luxury and technology blended in together, with this sort of ability for us to take that home completely off the grid if we so desire, which is pretty awesome too. So I think that there's a cool motivation there as well.
But because we want all things at all times, this isn't only just good for the 15,000 square foot house, is it, Ian? I mean, if you have a much smaller home, I think there's some really good things. Where would you start in a 5,000 square foot house? If you were excited by Savant Energy, where would you be starting?
So I think the first thing that you should look at is really just allowing yourself to be able to explore in any of these directions. And that's done by introducing that smart electrical panel into the equation. And so that helps you build up an energy awareness. It helps you make smarter design decisions as you start to build onto the home, introduce generator or storage, and really give you all the tools to just be energy literate, to the point of making sure that you understand the needs of the home and address them appropriately. So I think that's the great place to start. Of course, if you're motivated to go further than that on day one, these solutions are fully scalable. And so whether you're just looking for some critical backup, maybe it's a handful of hours of backup power sustainability, or you're looking to back up that whole home possibly for days because you've gone through those experiences and you've decided that you and your family no longer want to experience that anymore, or you just want to have that safety net and feel secure in that space with your power.
So Blair, where would you tell them to start?
I just a very similar concept to what Ian was discussing. I think this idea of making every electrical panel smart is an awesome place to start. If you're engaging on a brand new home project, thinking about this from day one and saying, hey, I can at least make my electrical panels smart, or my electrical enclosure smart, is a great way to kick this off. If you're a little bit more interested and your local area supports it or other things like that, I personally am a big fan of solar. I eat my own dog food, so I have a whole solar array on my house, and that's been a really positive experience for us. And it's naturally made me want to do more, which I think is good.
I guess I have to ask the question, if you can, in this grid that you've created in your house, you could only in case of emergency, give power to one device. What is the one device you would, Blair? What's your mine's by the way the fridge, but I don't know anyone else. What's your number one device?
I would say for us, and speaking more plainly for my wife, if our network connection to the outside world goes down, you would think the world was coming to an end. So I would say if there was a critical load beyond critical loads, that the network in our home would be the most critical load. My wife wouldn't say the network; she would say the internet. But I think for us, it would be the network.
So Ian, I lived in New York where you are for a long time, and all my power came over poles. So we often lost power. What's the thing that you would, although if you're in the city, it's probably underground. What's your most important device?
So, of course, I could force the kids outside, but I'll say that to maintain some level of sanity, maybe it's the ability to plug in devices and charge some of those essential everyday tools, our phones, our tablets, that allow us to remain connected and give a little bit of entertainment as needed to the family.
How about you, Keith? What's on your list?
Same. Our kids don't get much time with iPads or TVs, but if I've got to entertain them and I have no idea how long it's going to take, you give me a way to entertain them and I'll be able to figure everything else out. I'll hunt for my own food outside.
Okay, well, that's, I know which part of Texas you're in. There's not a lot of good hunting there. But anyway, that's great. I mean, I think this is a conversation that can go very deep, and I'm really excited. Maybe as we get through this, we'll do bit more. And I know we have a couple of projects already going with you guys, one in Minnesota and one on the East Coast. So we'll watch those and see where they're going. But before we lose you, we play a game with everybody to see a little bit more insight, so you get the chance to enjoy this as well. Three simple questions. The first question, you guys are in home technology. Maybe you just answered this. What's the one piece of home technology or home automation that you couldn't live without? Blair, what's on your list?
That I can't live without?
You can't live without.
Can't live without. I would have to say it's lighting control. You never know how much you needed it until you don't have it. And lighting controls, I think, offered the most substantive improvement to our lifestyle from a technology standpoint. So it would be that for me.
Okay, and what's yours?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to say it's less about key equipment and more just generally about the shift of what smart home means, to me, the homeowner, me, the user now. It's a much more personal experience. And so just being able to craft what I want to be able to do in the home, create my own scenes, decide how I want to enjoy the space, I'll say that's probably the most important element to me.
Okay, and is there in your time at Savant, really anywhere, a job that you've done, Blair, that when you think back on it, you go, wow, that was an exciting project. What's your showcase banner project? Do you have one?
I do. It's a little conceptual, but I think it's pretty cool. As you know, Nigel, Bravas is a member of the Savant Advisory Council, and a handful of years ago, here at Savant, we really decided to amp up what our integrator advisory council meant to us. This is a group of key integrators and customers that really help set Savant's direction and make sure that we're on the right path. And over the last handful of years, we've done more and more and more and leaned in more and more with our advisory council. And that's been very exciting for me to be a part of.
What about you, Ian? Is there a project you did or a job you've done where you think, wow?
Yeah, I think it's an ongoing effort, but what I would hone in on is creating experiences like these that help us express what smart home means, let homeowners that are prospectively looking at a new home design or updating their home connect with what's available to them. And I'll say over the last couple of years, being able to offer that in more of a virtual environment and creating those opportunities where we can't go physically visit locations and really offering it up to just a greater audience.
And you guys did some great stuff with virtual tours of your demo centers, but nothing quite competes, I have to tell you, with going to look and play with the technology. Last thing for you, both of you, starting with you, Blair, anything not been invented yet for home automation? What's your next dream when you talk to your product management or product marketing team and say, I need you to invent this? Any ideas what you'd like that to be without giving away any secret roadmaps, of course?
Well, there's all sorts of little things that we're interested in. I crave a more direct connection. I really am always looking for the home to be more and more and more responsive. And so really, as we explore a better integration with things like voice and other stuff like that, I guess my key vision here would be just to be able to think it and have it happen. I just think that would be awesome. So that's sort of where I'm at.
Go on in, you have something you need invented. What is it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much on the same page as Blair. You know, I think you'll see that we're pushing further into adaptive technologies that have the home and the technology in the home just be more meaningful to that experience. But, you know, maybe taking a little bit lighter note, I'll rewind a few years to a comment that my daughter made. She would really love to see digital fabric for automated shades where you can really change the look and the feel of that experience in the room. Think an LED screen that just changes color. We haven't invented that yet. I think we still maybe have some work to do there, but I love that she's thinking creatively about the home.
And if you integrated that with your fabulous lighting products, you would have an amazing solution for the home, I think.
Absolutely. I'll be buttoned up.
Absolutely. Well, listen, guys, thank you very much for taking the time. I think this is an incredible conversation to start. I think we'll see what feedback we get, and I'm guessing we'll get lots of other questions, and we'll probably come back and dig down into this, because I do believe this is one of the most strategic places that anybody building a new luxury home should really think this through now, because it's going to be hard to do if you don't in the future. So thank you for your partnership, thank you for your time, and thanks for joining us on the Luxury Living Podcast.
Thank you, Nigel.
Thank you so much, Nigel. Thank you, Keith.